me try this again. Just got done mowing, and I'm having a bad day. I'm feeling extra incompetent, feeling extra fat and ugly. But I'm gonna try my hand at I already read some of this, but I forget where I left off, so I'm starting over. This is Letting Go. Can that mirror? Oh, that's my shoe. Oh, whatever. I don't have a mirror, but yeah, backwards for you. Sorry. Letting Go by. The Pathway to Surrender. Pathway of Surrender by David R. Hawkins, M.D., Ph.D. I have a lot I need to let go. Self-loathing stuff, depression stuff, anxiety stuff, OCD stuff. And I'm just feeling down today. But this is an uplifting book. So I'm going to read an uplifting book. And because I enjoy reading out loud. I'm skipping the foreword and I'm skipping the preface. Let's go straight to skipping the introduction as well. Come on, here we go. Oh, introduction is chapter 1. Never mind. All right, we'll read the introduction. Chapter 1. Introduction. While in contemplation one day, the mind said, "What in the world is wrong with us? Why doesn't happiness stay put? Where are the answers? How do we address the human dilemma? Have I gone nuts, or has the world gone crazy?" The solution to any problem seems to bring only brief relief, for it is the very basis of the next problem. Is the human mind a hopeless squirrel cage? Is everybody confused? Does God know what he's doing? Is God dead? The mind just kept chattering along. Does anybody have the secret? Don't worry. Everybody is desperate. Some seem cool about it. "I can't see what all the fuss is about," they say. "Life seems so simple to me." They are so scared, they can't even look at it. How about the experts? Their confusion is more sophisticated, wrapped in impressive jargon and elaborate mental construction. They have predetermined belief systems into which they try to squeeze you. It seems to work for a while, and then it's just back to one's original state again. It used to be that we could count on social institutions, but they have had their day. Nobody trusts them anymore. We now have more watchdogs than institutions. The hospitals are monitored by multiple agencies. Nobody has time for the patients who get lost in the shuffle. You look down the corridors. There are no doctors or nurses. They are in their offices doing paperwork. The whole scene is dehumanized. Well, you say, there have to be some experts who have the answers. When upset, you go to a doctor or a psychiatrist, an analyst, a social worker, or an astrologer. You take up religion. You get philosophy. Take the Earhart seminars training, etc. Tap yourself with EFT. You get your chakras balanced. You try some reflexology. You go for ear acupuncture. You do iridology. You get healed with lights and crystals. You meditate. You chant a mantra. You drink green tea. You try the Pentecostals. You breathe in fire. You speak in the tongues. You get centered. You learn NLP. You try actualizations. You work on visualizations. You study psychology. Join a Jungian group, whatever the frick that is. You jog, you jazzercise, you get Rolfed, you try psychedelics, you get a psychic reading. You have colonics. Ooh. You get into nutrition, you get into aerobics, you hang upside down, you wear psychic jewelry, get more insight, biofeedback, or gestalt therapy. You see, your your homeopath, your chiropractor, your naturopath. I'm learning all kinds of words today. Naturopath. You try kinesthesiology. You discover your Enneagram type. You get your meridians balanced. You join a consciousness-raising group. You take tranquilizers. Woo-hoo. You get some hormone shots. You try cell salts. Have your minerals balanced. You pray. You implore. You beseech. You learn astral projection. You become a vegetarian. Eat only cabbage. Try macrobiotics. You go organic. You eat no GMO. You meet up with Native American medicine men. You do a sweat lodge. You try the Chinese herbs. Moxie-combustion, shiatsu, acupressure, feng shui. You go to India. You find a new guru, like the Beatles. You take off your clothes. You swim in the Ganges. Ganges? I don't know. You stare directly at the sun. Don't do that. You shave your head. Eat with your finger. Don't eat your fingers. You eat with your fingers. You get really messy. Or you shower in cold water. Sing tribal chants. Relive past lives. You try hypnotic repression. Oh, anyway, I'll just skip this whole part. But basically, this guy is saying you try everything and nothing's working. So let me get to what he's trying to teach us in this book. Is letting go. I've never read this, so this is new to me too. Here we go. You try the endless varieties of psychotherapy. You take every wonder drug. You subscribe to all the journals. You try to eat all the healthy things. All right, let's see here. You do everything that you find on Earth. Nothing is working. We don't understand the problem. That's why we can't find the answer. Maybe it's ultra simple. And that's why we can't see it. Maybe the solution is not out there. And that's why we can't find it. Maybe we have so many belief systems that we are blinded to the obvious. Throughout history, a few individuals have reached great clarity and have experienced the ultimate solution to our human woes. How did they get there? What was their secret? Why can't we understand what they had to teach? Is it really next to impossible or nearly hopeless? What about the average person who is not a spiritual genius? Multitudes who follow spiritual pathways, but scarce, are the ones who finally succeed and realize the ultimate truth. Why is that? We follow ritual and dogma and zealously practice spiritual discipline, and we crash once again. Even when it works, the ego quickly comes in and we are caught in pride and smugness, thinking that we have all the answers. Oh, Lord, save us from the ones who have all the answers. Save us from the righteous. Save us from the do-gooders. Confusion is our salvation. I don't know, this is getting kind of hokey. I'll keep reading, though. For the confused, there is still hope. Hang on to your confusion. In the end, it is your best friend, your best defense against the deathliness of others' answers, against being raped by their ideas. If you are confused, you are still free. If you are confused, this book is for you. I am confused. This book is confusing, and he says this book is for you. That's very clever. So what is in this book? It tells you of a simple method to reach great clarity and transcend your problems along the way. It's not by finding the answers, but by undoing the basis of the problem. The state reached by the great sages of history is available. The solutions are within us and easy to find. The mechanism of surrender is simple, and the truth is self-evident. It works during daily life. There is no dogma or belief system. You verify everything for yourself. So, you cannot be misled. There is no dependence on any teachings. It follows the dicta, I don't know how to pronounce that. Know thyself. Know thyself. The truth shall set you free, and the kingdom of God is within you. It works for the cynic, the pragmatist, the religionist, and the atheist. It works for any age or cultural background. It works for the spiritual person and the non-spiritual person alike, because the mechanism is your own. Nobody can take that away from you. You are safe from disillusionment. You will find out for yourself what is real and what are just the mind's programs and belief systems. While all of this is going on, you will become healthier. I could use that. You'll become more successful with less effort, happier, more capable of real love. Your friends will notice a difference. The changes are permanent. You aren't going to go for a high and then crash later. You will discover there is an automatic teacher within yourself. Eventually, you will discover your inner self. You always unconsciously knew it was there. But when you come upon it, you'll understand what the great sages of history were trying to convey. You'll understand it because truth is self-evident and within your own self. This book is written with you, the reader, constantly in mind. It is easy, effortless, and enjoyable. Okay. There's nothing to learn or memorize. You will become lighter, happier as you read it. The material will automatically start bringing you the experience of freedom. As you read through the pages, you are going to feel the weights being removed. Everything you do will become more enjoyable. You are in for some happy surprises about your life! Exclamation point. Okay. Things are going to get better and better. It's okay to be skeptical. We've been taken down the primrose path before, so be as skeptical as you like. Thank you. Indeed, it's advisable to avoid gushing enthusiasm. It is a setup for a letdown later. Therefore, rather than enthusiasm, quiet observation will serve you better. Is there such a thing as something for nothing in the universe? Oh, yes. Most certainly there is. It's your own freedom, which you have forgotten and don't know how to experience. What is being offered to you is not something that has to be acquired. It is not something that is new or outside of yourself. It is already yours, and merely has to be reawakened, rediscovered. It will emerge of its own nature. The purpose of sharing this approach is merely to put you in touch with your own inner feelings. Okay. And experiences. In addition, there is much helpful information that your mind will want to know. The process of surrender will begin automatically, for it is the nature of the mind to seek relief from pain and suffering, and to experience greater happiness. The end of chapter 1. I don't know if anybody's watching this, but again, this is... I can't flip the darn thing, so it's in mirror mode. I'm sorry, but anyway, backwards, this is Letting Go, The Pathway of Surrender by David R. Hawkins, M.D., Ph.D. And And you're going to see my eyes do this, and you're going to see my eyes do that. I've got frog eyes now ever since I was a kid. That's just what it is. Chapter 2. The mechanism of letting go. What is it? Letting go is like the sudden cessation of an inner pressure of the dropping of a weight. It is accompanied by a sudden feeling of relief and lightness, with an increased happiness and freedom. It is an actual mechanism of the mind, and everyone has experienced it on occasion. A good example is the following. You're in the midst of an intense argument. You are angry and upset, when suddenly the whole thing strikes you as absurd or ridiculous. You start to laugh. The pressure is relieved. You come up from anger, fear, and feeling attacked to feeling suddenly free and happy. Think how great it would be if you could do that all of the time, in any place, and with any event. That'd be nice. You could always feel free and happy and never be cornered by your feelings again. That's what this technique is all about. Letting go consciously and frequently at will. You are then in charge of how you feel, and you are no longer at the mercy of the world, your reactions to it. You are no longer the victim. This is employing the basic teaching of the Buddha, which removes the pressure of involuntary reactivity. We carry around with us a huge reservoir of accumulated negative feelings, attitudes, and beliefs. The accumulated pressures makes us miserable and is the basis of many of our illnesses and problems. We are resigned to it and explain it away as the human condition. We seek to escape from it in a myriad of ways. The average human life is spent trying to avoid and run from the inner turmoil of fear and the threat of misery. Everyone's self-esteem is constantly threatened, both from within and without. Wow. If we take a close look at human life, we see that it is essentially one long, elaborate struggle to escape our inner fears and expectations that have been projected upon the world. Interspersed are periods of celebration, when we have momentarily escaped the inner fears, but the fears are still there, waiting for us. We have become afraid of our inner feelings because they hold such a massive amount of negativity that we fear we would be overwhelmed by it. If we were to take a deeper look, we have a fear of these feelings because we have no conscious mechanism by which to handle the feelings if we let them come up within ourselves. Because we are afraid to face them, they continue to accumulate, and finally, we secretly begin looking forward to death, to bring all of the pain to an end. It's not the thoughts or facts that are painful, but the feelings that accompany them. Thoughts in and of themselves are painless, but not the feelings that underlie them. It is the accumulated pressure of feelings that causes thoughts. One feeling, for instance, can create literally thousands of thoughts over a period of time. Think, for instance, of one painful memory from early life, one terrible regret that has been hidden. Look at all the years and years of thoughts associated with that single event. If we could surrender the underlying painful feeling, all of those thoughts would disappear instantly, and we would forget the event. The observation is in accord with scientific research. Oh gosh, let me butcher the pronunciation here. The Gray-LaViolette scientific theory integrates psychology and neurophysiology. Their research demonstrated that feeling tones organize thoughts in memory. Gray-LaViolette, 1981. Thoughts are filed in the memory bank according to the various shades and feelings associated with those thoughts. Therefore, when we relinquish or let go of a feeling, we are freeing ourselves from all of the associated thoughts. The great value of knowing how to surrender is that any and all feelings can be let go of at any time, at any place, in an instant, and it can be done continuously and effortlessly. Gosh dang. These glasses make my eyes look huge. What is a surrendered state? A surrendered state means to be free of negative feelings in a given area so that creativity and spontaneity can manifest without opposition or the interference of inner conflicts. To be free of inner conflict and expectations is to give others in our life the greatest freedom. It allows us to experience the basic nature of the universe, which, it will be discovered, is to manifest the greatest good possible in a situation. This may sound philosophical, but when done, it is experientially true. Okay. Feelings and mental mechanisms. We have three major ways of handling feelings: suppression, expression, and escape. We will discuss each in turn. Okay. Number 1, suppression and repression. These are the most common ways in which we push feelings down and put them aside. In repression, this happens unconsciously. In suppression, it happens consciously. We don't want to be bothered by the feelings, and besides, we don't know what else to do with them. We sort of suffer through them, try to keep functioning as best we can. The feelings that we select to be suppressed or repressed are in accord with the conscious and unconscious programs that we carry within us, from social custom and family training. The pressure of suppressed feelings is later felt as irritability, mood swings, tension in the muscles of the neck and back, headaches, cramps, menstrual disorders, colitis, indigestion, insomnia, hypertension, allergies, and other somatic conditions. When we repress a feeling, it's calling me out, that's all. When we repress a feeling, it is because there is so much guilt and fear over the feeling that it is not even consciously felt at all. It becomes instantly thrust into the unconscious as soon as it threatens to emerge. The repressed feeling is then handled in a variety of ways to ensure that it stays repressed and out of awareness. Of these mechanisms used by the mind to keep the feeling repressed, denial and projection are perhaps the best known methods, as they tend to go together and reinforce each other. Denial results in major emotional and maturational blocks. It is usually accompanied by the mechanism of projection. Because of guilt and fear, we repress the impulse or feeling, and we deny its presence within us instead of feeling it. We project it onto the world and those around us. We experience the feeling as if it belonged to them. They then become the enemy, and the mind searches for and finds justification to reinforce the projection. Blame is placed on people, places, institutions, food, climatic conditions, astrological events, social conditions, fate, God, luck, the devil, foreigners, ethnic groups, political rivals, and other things outside of ourselves. Projection is the main mechanism in use by the world today. It accounts for all the wars, strife, and civil disorder. hating the enemy is even encouraged in order to become a good citizen. We maintain our own self-esteem at the expense of others, and eventually this results in social breakdown. The mechanism of projection underlies all attack, violence, aggression, and every form of social destruction. It's very poignant. Wow. Number 2, expression. With this mechanism, the feeling is vented, verbalized, or stated in body language and acted out in endless group demonstrations. The expression of negative feelings allows just enough of the inner pressure to be let out so that the remainder can be suppressed. This is a very important point to understand for many people in society today. For many people in society today believe that expressing their feelings frees them from their feelings. The facts are to the contrary. The expression of a feeling, first, tends to propagate that feeling and give it greater energy. Second, the expression of the feeling merely allows the remainder to be suppressed out of awareness. The balance between suppression and expression varies in each individual depending on early training, current cultural norms and mores, and the media. Expressing oneself is now in vogue as a result of a misunderstanding of the work of Sigmund Freud and psychoanalysis. Freud pointed out that suppression was the cause of neurosis. Therefore, expression was mistakenly thought to be the cure. This misinterpretation became a license for self-indulgence at the cost of others. What Freud actually said in classical, psychoanalysis, was that the repressed impulse or feeling was to be neutralized, sublimated, socialized, and channeled into constructive drives of love, work, and creativity. If we dump our negative feelings onto others, they experience it as an attack, and they in turn are forced to suppress, express, or escape the feelings. Therefore, the expression of negativity results in the deterioration and destruction of relationships. A far better alternative is to take responsibility for our own feelings, neutralize them. Interesting. Then only positive feelings remain to be expressed. That's interesting. It's like the analogy where your brain is a stage, and you put on your stage what you choose to put on it. And this sounds like you handle the yuck on your stage. You know what? I'm just going to keep reading because the writer is smarter than me, and they're going to explain it better than I think I'm trying to. That's why I'm reading this. It's for my benefit, too. I've never read this. Number 3, escape. Escape is the avoidance of... Gosh, dang it. Okay. All right. I have OCD, and my most common obsession... my most common compulsion during my obsessive-compulsive disorder behavior is to avoid. So, this is calling me out. Here we go. Woo. All right, tear me up. Escape is the avoidance of feelings through diversion. This avoidance is the backbone of the entertainment and liquor industries, and also the root of the workaholic. Escapism, an avoidance of inner awareness, is a socially condoned mechanism. We can avoid our own inner selves and keep our feelings from emerging by an endless variety of pursuits, many of which eventually become addictions, as our dependency upon them grows. People are desperate to stay unconscious. Jeez, man. We observe how often people flick on the television set We observe how often people flick on the television set the minute they enter a room and then walk around in a dreamlike state, constantly being programmed by the data poured into them. People are terrified of facing themselves. They dread even a moment of aloneness. Thus, the constant frantic activities, the endless socializing, the talking, the texting, reading, music playing, working, traveling, sightseeing, shopping, overeating, gambling, movie-going, pill-taking, drug-using, and cocktail partying. Many of the foregoing mechanisms of escape are faulty. They're stressful and ineffective. Each of them requires increasing amounts of energy in and of itself. Enormous amounts of energy are required to keep down the growing pressure of the suppressed and repressed feelings. There was a progressive loss of awareness, an arrest of growth. There was a loss of creativity, energy, real interest in others. There was a halting of spiritual growth, and eventually the development of physical and emotional illness, disease, aging, premature death. The projection of these repressed feelings results in the social problems, disorders, and the increase of selfishness and callousness characteristic of our present society. Most of all, the effect is the inability to truly love and trust another person, which results in emotional isolation and self-hatred. Jeez, man. In contrast to the above, what happens instead when we let go of a feeling? The energy behind the feeling is instantly surrendered, and the net effect is decompression. The accumulated pressure begins to decrease as we constantly let go. Everyone knows that when we let go, we immediately feel better. The body's physiology changes. There are detectable improvements in skin color, breathing, pulse, blood pressure, muscle tension, gastrointestinal function, and blood chemistries. In a state of inner freedom, all bodily functions and organs move in the general direction of normalcy and health. There is an immediate increase in muscle power. Vision improves. Our perception of the world and ourselves changes for the better. We feel happier, more loving, more easygoing. Okay. Just a quick reminder, and it's backwards, and that I'm an idiot, and I don't know how to flip it. Anyway, letting go, the pathway of surrender, by David R. Hawkins, M.D., Ph.D. So these are not my words. These are a much more educated, smart guy that wrote this stuff. I'm reading it for my own benefit. I'm just happy to share it. I'm feeling a little called out. Gosh dang. Feelings and stress. There was much attention and publicity given to the subject of stress, without a real understanding of its essential nature. It is said that we are more stress-prone than ever. What is the essential cause of stress? Certainly it is not the external precipitating factors. They are merely examples of the mechanism we described as projection. It is they, or it, that is thought to be the culprit, when, in fact, what we are feeling is merely the letting out of the inner pressure of repressed emotions. It is these repressed feelings that make us vulnerable to external stress. Freaking hate being vulnerable. The real source of stress is actually internal. It is not external, as people would like to believe. The readiness to react with fear, for instance, depends on how much fear is already present within to be triggered by a stimulus. The more fear we have on the inside, the more our perception of the world is changed to a fearful, guarded expectancy. To the fearful person, this world is a terrifying place. To the angry person, this world is a chaos of frustration and vexation. To the guilty person, it is a world of temptation and sin, which they see everywhere. What we are holding inside colors our world. If we let go of the guilt, we will see innocence. However, a guilt-ridden person only sees evil. The basic rule is that we focus on what we have repressed. Stress results from the accumulated pressure of our repressed and suppressed feelings. The pressure seeks relief, and so external events only trigger what we have been holding down, both consciously and unconsciously. The energy of our blocked-off feelings re-emerges through our, autonomic, I'm learning all kinds of big kid words today, through our autonomic nervous system, and causing pathological changes leading to disease processes. A negative feeling instantly causes a loss of 50% of the body's muscle strength, and also narrows our vision both physically and mentally. Stress is our emotional reaction to a precipitating factor or stimulus. Stress is determined by our belief systems and their associated emotional pressures. It is not the external stimulus, then, that is the cause of stress, but our degree of reactivity. The more surrendered we are, the less prone we are to stress. The damage caused by stress is merely the result of our own emotions. The effectiveness of letting go and reducing the body's response to stress has been demonstrated in scientific studies. See Chapter 14. Well, that'll be a minute. Many stress reduction programs offered today often miss the essential point. They try to relieve the after effects of stress rather than remove the cause of the stress itself. Or they concentrate on external events. This is like trying to reduce the fever without correcting the infection. For instance, muscle tension is the aftermath of anxiety, fear, anger, and guilt. A course in the techniques of muscle relaxation is going to be of very limited benefit. It would be far more effective instead to remove the source of the underlying tension, which is the repressed and suppressed anger, fear, guilt, or other negative feelings. It's getting kind of dark out here. I'm just going to turn the lights on. I'll be right back. Just going to reach behind me. Ooh. Lights on. Love you. Ow, heckin'. God dang it. Heavenly light above me. Here we go. Life events and emotions. The rationalizing mind prefers to keep the true causes of emotion out of awareness and utilizes the mechanism of projection to do this. It blames events or other people for causing a feeling and views itself as the hopeless innocent victim of external causes. They made me angry. or he got me upset, or it scared me. World events are the cause of my anxiety. Actually, it's the exact opposite. The suppressed and repressed feelings seek an outlet and utilize the events as triggers and excuses to vent themselves. We are like pressure cookers ready to release steam when the opportunity arises. Our triggers are set and ready to go off. In psychiatry, this mechanism is called displacement. It is because we are angry that events make us angry. If, through constant surrendering, we have let go of the pent-up store of anger, it is very difficult, and, in fact, even impossible for anyone or any situation to make us angry. The same, therefore, goes for all other negative feelings once they have been surrendered. Because of social conditioning in our society, people even suppress and repress their positive feelings. Suppressed love results in the broken heart of the heart attack. Shoo! Suppressed love reemerges as excessive adoration of pets and various forms of idolatry. True love is free of fear and characterized by non-attachment. Fear of loss energizes undue attachment and possessiveness. For example, the man who is insecure about his girlfriend is very jealous. When the pressure of suppressed and repressed feelings exceeds the individual's tolerance level, the mind will create an event out there upon which to vent and displace itself. Thus, the person with a lot of repressed grief will unconsciously create sad events in their life. The fearful person precipitates frightening experiences. The angry person becomes surrounded by infuriating circumstances, and the prideful person is constantly being insulted. As Jesus Christ said, "Why do you see the splinter which is in your brother's eye, and do not feel the beam which is in your own eye?" And that's like, what are you talking about his dandelions in his yard when you've got dandelions in your own yard? That kind of thing. Like, don't talk about their dirty laundry when you have dirty laundry too. That kind of thing. All the great masters point us within. Everything in the universe emits a vibration. The higher the vibration, the more power it has. Emotions also, because they are energy, emit vibrations. These emotional vibrations impact the body's energy fields and reveal effects that can be seen, felt, and measured. Motion pictures using Kirlian photography, such as those done by Dr. Thelma Moss, show rapid fluctuations of the color and size of the energy field with changes of emotions. All right, now we're getting into stuff I don't understand as much. But no, the stuff that I was talking about earlier, I really appreciated it. Just, I avoid a lot of my problems by turning to junk food, turning to food, and overeating in general. Video games and stuff. I'm probably avoiding stuff just by trying this out. I know that's a lot of food for thought. But I'm gonna go get Way of Kings again because I'm in the mood. Here we go. There we go. All right. Enough philosophizing and spiritualizing. Going back to this here. Again, it's backwards and hard to read, but anyway. Brandon Sanderson, The Way of Kings. Book 1 of that stuff. Anyway, oh gosh. I didn't have a bookmark, so I gotta find where the flip I left off here. Let's see here. Weapons. We're talking about... here we are. All right. So, I'll just go back a bit. The figure in white and blue glanced toward him. Even after all these centuries, Jezrien looked young, like a man barely into his 30th year. His short black beard was neatly trimmed, though his once fine clothing was scorched, stained with blood. He folded his arms behind his back as he turned to Kalak. "What is this, Jezrien?" Kalak asked. "Where are the others?" "Departed." Jezrien's voice was calm, deep, regal, though he hadn't worn a crown in centuries. His royal manner lingered. He always seemed to know what to do. "You might call it a miracle. Only one of us died this time." "Talanel," Kalak said. He was the only blade unaccounted for. "Yes. He died holding that passage by the northern waterway." Kalak nodded. Tal had a tendency to choose seemingly hopeless fights and win them. He also had a tendency to die in the process. He would be back now, in the place where they went between desolations, the place of nightmares. Kalak found himself shaking. When had he become so weak? "Jezrien, I can't return this time," Kalak whispered, the words stepping up and gripping the other man's arm. Oh, he whispered the words. Misread that. He whispered the words, gripped the guy's arm. "I can't." Kalak whispered something within him. Wow, okay. Kalak felt something within him break at the admission. How long had it been? Centuries? Perhaps millennia of torture. It was so hard to keep track. Those fires, those hooks digging into his flesh anew each day, searing the skin off of his arm, then burning the fat, then driving to the bone. He could smell it. Almighty, he could smell it. "Leave your sword," Jezrien said. "What?" Jezrien, sorry, my bad. "Leave your sword." "What?" Jezrien nodded to the ring of weapons. "I was chosen to wait for you. We weren't certain if you had survived. A decision has been made. It is time for the Oath Pact to end." Kalak felt a sharp stab of horror. "What will you do?" "Ishar believes that so long as there is one of us that is bound to the Oath Pact, it may be enough. There is a chance we might end the cycle of the desolations." Kalak looked into the immortal king's eyes. Black smoke rose from a small patch to their left. Groans of the dying haunted them from behind. There in Jezrien's eyes, Kalak saw anguish and grief, perhaps even cowardice. This was a man hanging from a cliff by a thread. "Almighty above," Kalak thought. "You're so broken too, aren't you?" They all were. Kalak turned. It might be Kalak. It might be Kalak. I don't know how to pronounce that. It's okay. Kalak turned and walked to the side, where a low ridge overlooked part of the battlefield. There were so many corpses, and among them walked the living, men in primitive wraps, carrying spears. Topped by the bronze heads. Juxtaposed between them were others in gleaming plate armor. One group walked past, 4 men in their ragged tanned skins or shoddy leather, joining a powerful figure in beautiful silver plate, amazingly intricate. Such a contrast. Jezrien stepped up beside him. "They see us as divinities." "Oh, excuse me, that was Kalak." "They see us as divinities," Kalak whispered. "They rely upon us, Jezrien. We are all that they have." "They have the radiance. That will be enough." Kalak shook his head. "He will not remain bound by this, the enemy. He will find a way around it. You know he will." Perhaps. The king of heralds offered no further explanation. In town? Kalak asked. The fresh burning, the fires, the pain over and over and over. Better that one man should suffer than 10. Jezrien whispered. He seemed so cold, like a shadow caused by heat and light falling on someone honorable and true, casting this black imitation behind him. Jezrien walked back to the ring of swords. His own blade formed in his hands, appearing from mist, wet with condensation. It has been decided, Kalak. We will go our ways. We will not seek out one another. Our blades must be left. The oath pact ends now. He lifted his sword and rammed it into the stone with the other 7. Jezrien hesitated, looking at the sword, then bowed his head and turned away, as if ashamed. We chose this burden, willingly. Well, we can choose to drop it, if we wish. What do we tell the people, Jezrien? Kalak asked. What will they say of this day? That is simple, Jezrien said, walking away. We tell them that they finally won. That is an easy enough lie. Who knows? Maybe it will turn out to be true. Kalak watched Jezrien depart across the burned landscape. Finally, he summoned his own blade and slammed it into the stone beside the other 8. He turned and walked in the direction opposite from Jezrien. And yet, he could not help glancing back at the ring of swords. In the single open spot, the place where the 10th sword should have gone. The one of them who was lost, the one that they had abandoned. Forgive us, Kalak thought, and then left. Ooh, what the frick is going on, man? That was just the intro of this here first book. Oh my gosh, Book 1, The Way of Kings, 4,500 years later. Well, gosh dang. Here we go. Prologue. To kill. The love of men is a frigid thing, a mountain stream only 3 ways from the ice. We are his. Oh, storm father, we are his. It is but 1,000 days, and the ever-storm comes. Collected on the final day of the week Pala of the month Shash of the year 1171, 31 seconds before death, subject was a dark-eyed pregnant woman of middle years. The child did not survive. Zeth, son Villano, truthless of Shinovar, wore white on the day he was to kill a king. The white clothing was a Parshendi tradition, foreign to him, but he did as his masters required, and he did not ask for an explanation. He sat in a large stone room, baked by enormous fire pits that cast a garish light upon the revelers, causing beads of sweat to form on their skin as they danced and drank and yelled and sang and clapped. Some fell to the ground, red-faced, the revelry too much for them, their stomachs proving to be inferior wine-skins. They looked as if they were dead, at least until their friends carried them out of the feast hall to waiting beds. Zeth did not sway to the drums, drink the sapphire wine, or stand to dance. He sat on a bench at the back, a still servant, in white. Few at the treaty-signing celebration noticed him. He was just a servant, and Shin were easy to ignore. Most out here in the east thought Zeth's kind were docile and harmless, and they were generally right. The drummers began a new rhythm. The beats shook Szeth like a quartet of thumping hearts, pumping waves of invisible blood through the room. Szeth's masters, who were dismissed as savages by those in more civilized kingdoms, sat at their own tables. They were men with skin of black marbled with red. Parshendi, they were named, cousins to the more docile servant peoples known as Parshmen in most of the world. An oddity. They did not call themselves Parshendi. This was the Alethi name for them. It meant roughly, Parshmen who can think. Neither side seemed to see that as an insult. The Parshendi had brought the musicians. At first, the Alethi Light Eyes had been hesitant. To them, drums were bass instruments of the common dark-eyed people. But wine and the great assassin of both tradition and propriety, and now the Alethi elite danced with abandon. Szeth stood and began to pick his way through the room. The revelry had lasted long. Even the king had retired hours ago, but many still celebrated. As he walked, Szeth was forced to step around Dalinar Kholin, the king's own brother, who slumped drunken at a small table. The aging but powerfully built man kept waving away those who tried to encourage him to bed. Where was Yasna, the king's daughter? Ooh, what a name. Elokar, the king's son and heir, sat at the high table, ruling the feast in his father's absence. He was in the conversation with two men, a dark-skinned Azish man who had an odd patch of pale skin on his cheek, and a thinner Alethi-looking man who kept glancing over his shoulder. The heir's feasting companions were unimportant. Szeth stayed far from the heir, skirting the sides of the room, passing the drummers. Music spren zipped through the air. Music spren zipped through the air around them, the tiny spirits taking the form of spinning translucent ribbons. As Szeth passed the drummers, they noted him. They would withdraw soon, along with all the other Parshendi. They did not seem offended. They did not seem angry. And yet, they were going to break their treaty of only a few hours. It made no sense. But Szeth did not ask questions. At the end of the room, he passed rows of unwavering azure lights that bulged out where wall met floor. They held sapphires infused with stormlight. Profane! How could the men of these lands use something so sacred for mere illumination? Worse, the Alethi scholars were said to be close to creating new shard blades. Szeth hoped that was just wishful boasting, for if it did happen, the world would be changed. Likely in a way that ended with people in all countries from distant Thelina to towering Yakaved speaking Alethi to their children. They were a grand people, these Alethi, even drunk. There was a natural nobility to them. Tall and well-made, the men dressed in dark silk coats that buttoned down the sides of the chest and were elaborately embroidered in silver or gold. Each one looked a general on the field. The women were even more splendid. They wore grand silk dresses tightly fitted, the bright colors a contrast to the dark tones favored by the men. The left sleeve of each dress was longer than the right, covering the hand. Alethi had an odd sense of propriety. Their pure black hair was pinned up atop their heads, either in intricate weavings of braids or in loose piles. It was often woven with gold ribbons or ornaments, along with gems that glowed with stormlight. Beautiful. Profane, but beautiful. Szeth left the feasting chamber behind. Just outside, he passed the doorway into the beggar's feast. It was an Alethi tradition, a room where some of the poorest men and women in the city were given a feast complementing that of the king and his guests. A man with a long gray and black beard slumped in the doorway, smiling foolishly, though whether from wine or a weak mind, Zeth could not tell. "Have you seen me?" the man asked with slurred speech. "Have you seen me?" the man asked with slurred speech. He laughed, then began to speak in gibberish, reaching for a wineskin. So it was a drink after all. Zeth brushed by, continuing past a line of statues depicting the 10 heralds from ancient Vorin theology. Jezerize, Ishi, Kalek, Talanalet. He counted off each one and realized there were only 9 here. One was conspicuously missing. Why had Shalash's statue been removed? King Gavilar was said to be very devout in his Vorin worship, too devout by some people's standards. The hallway here curved to the right, running around the perimeter of the domed palace. They were on the king's floor, 2 levels up, surrounded by rock walls, ceiling, and floor. That was profane. Stone was not to be trod upon, but what was he to do? He was truthless. He did as his masters demanded. Today that included wearing white, loose white trousers tied at the waist with a rope, and over them a filmy shirt with long sleeves open at the front. White clothing for a killer was a tradition among the Parshendi, although Zeth had not asked, his masters had explained why. White to be bold, white to not blend into the night, white to give warning. For if you were going to assassinate a man, he was entitled to see you coming. Zeth turned right, taking the hallway directly toward the king's chambers. Torches burned on the walls, their light unsatisfying to him. A meal of thin broth after a long, fast flame sprint danced around them, like large insects made solely of congealed light. The torches were useless to him. He reached for his pouch and the spheres it contained, but then hesitated when he saw more of the blue lights ahead. A pair of stormlight lamps hanging on the wall, brilliant sapphires glowing at their hearts. Zeth walked up to one of these, holding out his hand to cup it around the glass-shrouded gemstone. "You! You there!" a voice called at Elethy. There were 2 guards at the intersection, double guard, for there were savages abroad in Kholinar this night. True, those savages were supposed to be allies now, but alliances could be shallow things indeed. This one wouldn't last the hour. Zeth looked at the 2 guards approached. They carried spears. They weren't light eyes, and were therefore forbidden the sword. Their painted blue breastplates were ornate, however, as were their helms. They might be dark-eyed, but they were high-ranking citizens with honored positions in the royal guard. Stopping a few feet away, the guard at the front gestured with his spear. "Go on now. This is no place for you." He had tan Elethy's skin and a thin mustache that ran all the way around his mouth, becoming a beard at the bottom. Zeth didn't move. "Well," the guard said, "what are you waiting for?" Zeth breathed in deeply, drawing forth the stormlight. It streamed into him, siphoned from the twin sapphire lamps on the walls, sucking in as if by his deep inhalation. The stormlight raged inside of him, and the hallway suddenly grew. Suddenly grew what? I just lost my spot. The stormlight raged inside him, and the hallway suddenly grew darker, falling into shade like a hilltop cut off from the sun by a transient cloud. Zeth could feel the light's warmth, its fury. Like a tempest that had been injected directly into his veins, the power of it was invigorating, but dangerous. It pushed him to act, to move, to strike. Holding his breath, he clung to the stormlight. He could still feel it leaking out. Stormlight could be held for only a short time, a few minutes at most. It leaked away, the human body too porous a container. He had heard that the Void Bringers could hold it in perfectly, but then, did they even exist? His punishment declared that they did not. His honor demanded that they did. Afire with holy energy, Zeth turned to the guards. They could see that he was leaking stormlight, wisps of it curling from his skin like luminescent smoke. The lead guard squinted, frowning. Zeth was sure the man had never seen anything like it before. As far as he knew, Zeth had killed every stonewalker who had ever seen what he could do. What are you? The guard's voice had lost its certainty. Are you a spirit, or are you a man? What am I? Zeth whispered, a bit of light leaking from his lips as he looked past the man down the long hallway. I am sorry. Zeth blinked, lashing himself to that distant point the hallway. Stormlight raged from in his flesh. Stormlight raged from him in a flash, chilling his skin, and the ground immediately stopped pulling him downward. Instead, he was pulled toward the distant point. It was as if, to him, the direction had suddenly become down. This was a basic lashing, first of his 3 kinds of lashings. It gave him the ability to manipulate whatever force, spren, or god it was that held men to this ground. With this lashing, he could bind people or objects to different surfaces or in different directions. From Seth's perspective, the hallway was now a deep shaft down, which he was falling, and the 2 guards stood on one of the sides. They were shocked when Zeth's feet hit them, one for each face, throwing them over. Zeth shifted his view and lashed himself to the floor. Light leaked from him. The floor of the hallway again became down, and he landed between the 2 guards, clothes crackling and dropping flakes of frost. He rose, beginning the process of summoning his shard blade. One of the guards fumbled for his spear. Zeth reached down, touching the soldier's shoulder while looking up. He focused on a point above him while willing the light out of his body and into the guard, lashing the poor man to the ceiling. The guard yelped in shock as up became down for him. Light trailing from his body, he crashed into the ceiling, dropped his spear. It was not lashed directly, and clattered back down to the floor near Zeth. To kill. It was the greatest of sins, and yet here Zeth stood, truthless, profanely, walking on stones used for building. And it would not end as truthless. There was only one life he was forbidden to take, and that was his own. At the 10th beat of his heart, his shard blade dropped into his waiting hand. It formed as if condensing from mist, water, beating along the metal length. His shard blade was long and thin, edged on both sides, smaller than most others. Zeth swept it out, carving a line in the stone floor and passing through the second guard's neck. As always, the shard blade killed oddly. Though it cut easily through the stone, steel, or anything inanimate, the metal fuzzed when it touched living skin. It traveled through the guard's neck without leaving a mark, but once it did, the man's eyes smoked and burned. They blackened, shriveling up in his head, and he slumped forward, dead. A shard blade did not cut living flesh. It severed the soul itself. Above, the first guard gasped. He'd managed to get to his feet, even though they were planted on the ceiling of the hallway. "Sword-bearer!" he shouted. "A sword-bearer assaults the king's hall! To arms!" Finally, Szeth thought. Szeth's use of the stormlight was unfamiliar to the guards, but they knew a shard blade when they saw one. Szeth bent down and picked up the spear that had fallen from above. As he did so, he released the breath that he had been holding since drawing in the stormlight. It sustained him while he held it, but those 2 lanterns hadn't contained much of it, so he would need to breathe it again soon. The light began to leak away more quickly now that he wasn't holding his breath. Szeth set the spear's butt against the stone. I can turn this a bit. Let's see here. Yeah, that light is what it is, isn't it? Yeah, that light is what it is, isn't it? I've got a bit of a god ray on me. Sorry about that. I'll try sitting over there next time. Here we go. Szeth set the spear's butt against the stone floor, then looked upward. The guard above stopped shouting, eyes opening wide as the tails of his shirt began to slip downward, the earth below reasserting its dominance. The light steaming off of his head. The light streaming... Oh my gosh, I'm dyslexic as frick. The light steaming off his body dwindled. He looked down at Szeth, down at the spear tip pointing directly at his heart. Violet fear spren crawled out of the stone ceiling around him. The light ran out. The guard fell. He screamed as he hit, the spear impaling him through the chest. Szeth let the spear fall away, carried to the ground with a muffled thump by the body twitching on its end, shard blade in hand. He turned down a side corridor, following the map that he had memorized. He ducked around a corner. Whoa. And I skipped a page. He ducked around a corner and flattened himself against the wall just as a troop of guards reached the dead man. The newcomers began shouting immediately, continuing the alarm. His instructions were clear. Hi. Yeah.
Do you want to make brownies and stay up all night watching really good show?
I can make brownies. I'll make brownies with you.
You want to make brownies and eat the brownies and stay up all night?
Plus it's just getting dark and I don't want to bug the neighbors anyhow, so I'll come in soon. I just wanted to try to finish this chapter. I love you too. I love you too.
Oh, the show is amazing.
Huh?
The show is amazing.
Well, that's good to hear. I love you. That was the wife. We love the wife here. Wife is good. All right. Like I said, I'm going to try to finish this chapter. I don't want to bug neighbors or whatever. It's, I don't even know what time it is, but it's, sun's almost down here. Mountain time. His instructions were clear. Kill the king, but be seen doing it. Let the Galathine know he was coming and what he was doing. Why? Why did the Parshendi agree to this treaty, only to send an assassin the very night of its signing? More gemstones glowed on the walls of the hallway here. King Gavilar liked lavish display, and he couldn't know that he was leaving sources of power for Szeth to use in his lashings. The things Szeth did hadn't been seen for millennia. Histories from those times are all but non-existent, and the legends were horribly inaccurate. Szeth peeked back out the corridor. One of the guards at the intersection saw him, pointing and yelling. Szeth made sure they got a good look, and then ducked away. He took a deep breath as he ran, drawing in the stormlight from the lanterns. His body came alive with it, and his speed increased, his muscles bursting with energy. Light became a storm inside of him. His blood thundered in his ears. It was terrible and wonderful at the same time. 2 corridors down, one to the side, He threw open the door of a storage room, then hesitated a moment, just long enough for a guard to round the corner and see him. Before dashing into the room, preparing for a full lashing, he raised his arm and commanded the stormlight to pool there, causing the skin to burst alight with radiance. Then he flung his hand out toward the doorframe, spraying white luminescence across it like paint. He slammed the door just as the guards arrived. The stormlight held the door in the frame with the strength of 100 arms. A full lashing bound objects together, holding them fast until the stormlight ran out. It took longer to create, and drained stormlight far more quickly than a basic lashing. The door handle shook, and then the wood began to crack as the guards threw their weight against it, one man calling for an axe. Zeth crossed the room in rapid strides, weaving around the shrouded furniture that had been stored here. It was of red cloth and deep, expensive woods. He reached the far wall, and preparing himself for yet another blasphemy, he raised his shard blade and slashed horizontally through the dark gray stone. The rock sliced easily. A shard blade could cut any inanimate object. 2 vertical slashes followed, then one across the bottom, cutting a large square block. He pressed his hand against it, willing stormlight into the stone. Behind the room's door began to crack. He looked over his shoulder, focused on the shaking door. Lashing the block in that direction, Frost crystallized on his clothing. Lashing something so large required a great deal of stormlight. The tempest within him stilled like a storm reduced to a drizzle. He stepped aside. The large stone block shuddered, sliding into the room. Normally, moving the block would have been impossible. Its own weight would have held it against the stones below. Yet, now, that same weight pulled it free. For the block, the direction of the room's door was down. With a deep grinding sound, the block slid free of the wall and tumbled through the air, smashing furniture. The soldiers finally broke through the door, staggering into the room just as the enormous block crashed into them. Zeth turned his back on the terrible sound of the screams, the splintering of the wood, the breaking of bones. He ducked and stepped through his new hole, entering the hallway outside. He walked slowly, drawing stormlight from the lamps he passed, siphoning it to him, stoking anew the tempest within. As the lamps dimmed, the corridor darkened. A thick wooden door stood at the end, and as he approached, small fear spread, shaped like globs of purple goo, began to wriggle from the masonry, pointing toward the doorway. They were drawn by the terror being felt on the other side. Zeth pushed the door open, entering the last corridor leading to the king's chambers. "I got a bug on my nose." Tall, red ceramic vases lined the pathway, and they were interspersed with nervous soldiers. They flanked a long, narrow rug. It was red, like a river of blood. The spearmen in front didn't wait for him to get close. They broke into a trot, lifting their short-throwing spears. Zeth slammed his hand to the ground. Slammed his hand to the side, pushing stormlight into the doorframe. Using the third and final type of lashing, a reverse lashing, this one worked differently from the other two. It did not make the doorframe emit stormlight. Indeed, it seemed to pull nearby light into it, giving it a strange penumbra. The spearman threw, and Zeth stood still, hand on the doorframe. A reverse lashing required his constant touch, but took comparatively little stormlight. During one, anything... Oh, man, the bugs keep going. The reverse lashing required his constant touch, but took comparatively little stormlight. During one, anything that approached him, particularly lighter objects, was instead pulled towards the lashing itself. The spears veered in the air, splitting around him, and slammed into the wooden frame, as he felt them hit. Zeth leaped into the air and lashed himself to the right wall, his feet hitting the stone with a slap. He immediately reoriented his perspective. To his eyes, he wasn't standing on the wall. The soldiers were. The blood-red carpet streaming between them like a long tapestry. Zeth bolted down the hallway, striking with his shard blade, shearing through the necks of two men who had thrown spears at him. Their eyes burned, and they collapsed. The other guards in the hallway began to panic. Some tried to attack him. Others yelled for more help. Still, others cringed away from him. The attackers had trouble. They were disoriented by the oddity of striking at someone who hung on the wall. Zeth cut down a few, then flipping into the air, tucking into a roll, and lashing himself back to the floor. He hit the ground in the midst of the soldiers, completely surrounded but holding a shard blade. According to legend, the shard blades were first carried by the knights radiant uncounted ages ago. Gifts of their god, granted to allow them to fight horrors of rock and flame, dozens of feet tall, foes whose eyes burned with hatred, the Void Bringers. When your foe had skin as hard as stone itself, steel was useless. Something supernal was required. Zeth rose from his crouch, loose white clothes rippling, jaw clenched against his sins. He struck out, his weapon flashing with reflected torchlight. Elegant, wide swings, 3 of them, one of which there are bugs all over my beard. Ah! Elegant, wide swings, 3 of them, one after another. He could neither close his ears to the screams that followed nor avoid seeing the men fall. They dropped round him like toys knocked over by a child's careless kick. If the blade touched a man's spine, he did. Wow. If the blade touched a man's spine, he died, eyes burning. If it cut through the core of a limb, it killed that limb. One soldier stumbled away from Zeth, arm flopping uselessly on his shoulder. He would never be able to feel it or use it again. Oh, there's so many bugs! Gosh. I'll try reading inside next time. Zeth lowered his shard blade, standing among the cindered-eyed corpses. Here in Elithkar, men often spoke of the legends of mankind's hard-won victory over the Voidbringers. But when weapons created to fight nightmares were turned against common soldiers, the lives of men became cheap things indeed. Zeth turned and continued on his way, slippered feet falling on the soft red rug. The shard blade, as always, glistened silver and clean. When one killed with a blade, there was no blood. That seemed like a sign. The shard blade was just a tool. It could not be blamed for the murders. Oh, that's an awful stopping spot, but I'm getting eaten alive by bugs. But I wanted to try this. We're on page 18. I wanted to try this because, gosh dang it, I've been wanting to try this for years, and I just didn't until today I did. So, oh my gosh, there's comments and stuff. Thank you all. Thank you. I didn't expect to... Excuse me. Anyway, so what I was reading earlier was... And this is backwards because I suck. Anyway, Letting Go, The Pathway of Surrender, by David R. Hawkins, MD, PhD. And then I was just reading the beginning of Brandon Sanderson's The Way of Kings. It has been a pleasure. Thank you. I didn't expect anybody to be watching at all, other than God. So... I'm going to go inside and make brownies with my wife. That's not a euphemism. We're literally going to do that. And, all right. All of y'all have a good night. And thank you. I hope you enjoyed. I like to read. And there we go. Okay, bye.